Are the Lakers contenders? I guess let's just start there. And I'm sure there's a simple answer, but a lot more to get into. Jason, let's start with you. Are the Lakers contenders, as they presently said?
So I think the short answer is yes. The longer answer is, how are we defining contender in terms of does this team have a chance? Yeah, of course they have a chance. I think there are certain things you have to have in order to have a chance. I think you have to have one of the top tier superstars. Unless you're overwhelmingly talented, a la like the 2024 Boston Celtics. But you essentially have to have one of those top tier guys if you look back. It's Shea last year, it's Jokic in 2023, it's Steph in 2022, it's Giannis, it's LeBron, it's Kawhi. You go back, it's always one of those dudes. The Lakers clearly have one of those dudes. I think he's been the third best player in the league this year, Luka Doncic. I think he's clearly been behind Shea and Jokic, but I don't think you can argue anyone else above him in that number 3 spot. We're going to talk more about them individually as players, the stars, later on, so I won't dig into Luka right now. But I think you have to have one of those guys, and they do. I think you have to have an elite unit. I think you got to have a thing on the court that you do better than everybody or better than most teams. And the Lakers are one of 3 teams in the league that have been elite half-court offenses, like transcendently good half-court offenses. Denver, Oklahoma City, and the Lakers. Now, their actual full offensive rating gets a little more complicated because they don't score much in transition, and we could talk about that in a second. But I do think they have some basic checkpoints. They do have a legitimate top-tier superstar, and they have a thing that they do better than most teams, and that's score in the half court. The main problem is margin. There's this little screen on the NBA.com website when you're sorting through their stats under teams. You can click miscellaneous. And what I like about it is it basically just grabs all the margin stats and puts them on one screen. So the 3 that are next to each other there are points off of turnovers, second chance points, and fast break points scored. And the Lakers have a negative margin in all 3 of those areas. And that really is the main concern. When you're already essentially a bottom 10 defense, and then you compound that with the fact that you're negative in all 3 margins, that just makes it so that you have to be so transcendently great in those other areas. And unfortunately, there's going to be 2 teams in the West that are going to have a better player than Luka in Oklahoma City and in Denver. And the Lakers are also, in terms of their half-court offense, they're as good as those teams, but they're not better than those teams. And so it just the margins get a little thin for them. Their margin for error gets a little thin because they don't make up ground in those other parts of the game. And that really is the main goal for this team the rest of the season, whether it's accomplished through trade, whether it's accomplished through better habits, whether it's just Luka taking better care of the basketball, or whatever it ends up being. There's a combination of things they're going to have to do to generate more margin so that they can use their offense to push them over the top.
I agree on the margin stuff. That's interesting that you've got the Lakers as a contender. I don't, and I'm usually more on the optimistic side. Jovan, before I get into why, Jovan, where do you stand? Are the Lakers a contender or not?
I have them as a fringe contender. So I just did my contender rankings on my channel last week, and I had the Lakers 5th overall. The issue for them is that 3 of the 4 teams ahead of them are in the West. And the team I had 6th was San Antonio, who had just blown the Lakers out and then now just beat OKC and, yes, lost in the NBA Cup championship to New York, but I thought was better than New York for going on 3+ quarters of that game. They just had a rough 4th quarter, did not execute, and that could be a learning experience for San Antonio. But I think if you want to put San Antonio ahead of the Lakers, I think that's its own conversation here, where seeing those 2 teams match up last week closer to full strength on both sides and seeing what San Antonio just did to OKC, I mean, as of right now, I would still put the Lakers slightly ahead of them. But if you want to argue for that, and there's a clear statistical case right now for San Antonio ahead of LA, they've been better than them on both sides of the ball. So that is its own thing. But I think for the Lakers, I say fringe contender because, again, I think if you're 5th or 6th and you have a top 3 player in the league, I have to give you some puncher's chance to, I think there's a pathway, but to me, it's probably more of a 2019 Blazers or 2023 Lakers, where you need a certain bracket Maybe it ends up like somehow Denver and Houston are like the 4 or 5 and OKC's the 1. And now all 3 of those teams are on the other side. Maybe it's the Lakers as the 2 seed, San Antonio as the 3 seed. Like that's like conceivable, but that is a very narrow path. I say fringe because I also think like if the Lakers make some rotation changes, which we can go to the starting group, I think it's really interesting. Like looking at their 4 most played lineups on the season, 3 of them are negative actually. And all 3 of them are -8 or worse in terms of points per 100 possessions. So 3 of their 4 most played lineups this season are getting just shellacked. And it's actually 4 of their top 6 as well if you keep extending the sample size. So like relatively small sample size within that, but they do have this like odd dichotomy here where a lot of their lineups are either like the Lakers are the kings of runs, right? Like they're going on these big runs with certain groups and then they're getting absolutely hammered with other groups. And like I don't think JJ has a great pulse right now on the rotation and the optimal way to play certain lineups. And I think it starts with a starting change, but then I also think we saw the value of having Jared Vanderbilt in the rotation and playing some of those Banshee guys and leaning into that identity a little bit more and being like, okay, yes, the offense is going to take a hit. The offense wasn't as good against Phoenix, but the defense was much better. And I think they still have to find that balance. And then the other thing that we've talked about a million times has been like they need to make a trade, right? So I think they are fringe contenders right now. I'd probably put them 5th or 6th. If they can fix the starting group, if they can fix some of the rotations and make a trade, I think they could vault into maybe as high as like the 3rd spot. I don't know if they go like maybe 2nd, but probably 3rd. So I'm like, they're a fringe contender with